Brilliant. Okay. Well, hello everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I'm David. I tend to think of my role at G2 as I can be Lasky. Well, I'm also Lasky. Most people call me by my surname, but for now, I'll go by David. I tend to think of my role at G2 generally as behind the scenes. I like serving on the cafe team. I lead a small group, and in this role, I support Hannah and the SLT as part of the church council. Over the last few weeks, we've been working through a series about generosity, learning and acknowledging that all of our money is really God's money, and what our role is in stewarding that and using that effectively. Hannah also recently shared an update about the future of G2 outside of the Church of England and what we believe we're being called into. One of the most common questions that we've had since then is about our money. So I'm here today to provide an update on our finances for this year. As part of this, I'll cover where we finished in 2025 and also our budget for 2026. If you're a visitor here, I can see some new faces. We don't do this every week. We tend to do this about once a year, and I'm primarily speaking to people that regularly come to G2. I know that British people tend to hate talking about money. I read recently in a study that 38% of British people find it vulgar to talk about money, which is quite a strong word. This did differ by generation, with younger people feeling a little bit more comfortable with speaking about money. We've got quite a young church, so let's see whether that holds true in this setting. I'll speak for about 10 minutes and try to avoid going into too much detail. I know some of you will absolutely love that if you're like me, but most of you, a slideshow of bar charts and numbers will make you think, ooh, what part will I tactically go to the toilet for? I know it's particularly challenging to discuss money when it's discussed within a church environment. Before I properly start, please know that by sharing this update, I'm aiming to communicate all of this information with kindness, openness, and transparency. I want to ensure that we, as the church, are aware of our position, acknowledge and thank God for all that He has provided in 2025, share without any intention to create blame, guilt, or shame, encourage you to ask me further questions afterwards, and finally, invite you to partner with us in praying and asking God for further provision and to consider your own personal giving. As Hannah shared a few weeks ago, G2 is entering a new season. We strongly and passionately believe that we're called to be a worshipping community which is committed to making disciples who make disciples. I think it's easy to think of the budget as something that Hannah and the SLT need to think about, but it's not really our concern. We, literally you and me, we are the church. Whilst our budget is documented in a spreadsheet, it should really reflect our vision for what we as a church value, where we want to invest our time, our energy, our effort, and the money. Our giving enables us to gather, to reach new disciples, to help people follow Jesus, and enables us to give to mission partners. I think a common misconception relates to the source of our income. To be absolutely clear, other than 2 small mission grants, everything that we do is funded by the generosity of the G2 community. That includes the salaries of the staff, the building hire, the teas and coffees and snacks, the midweek gatherings, the pastoral care, the support that we get, the list goes on. There's so much that we do as a community currently, but we also believe that we're being called into and would love to be doing so much more. We hope the budget reflects that, but we also pray that God provides much more than our budget anticipates. Please pray with us for that. So, where did we end up in 2025? This slide shows 3 key figures: our income, our expenditure, and where that left us at the end of 2025 in terms of reserves. Our income was just shy of 100K. Our expenditure was just over 105K. This meant that we had to use some of the money in our reserves to cover that difference, resulting in our reserves declining to £9,848. We're so grateful to God for the provision in 2025, both in the faithfulness of this church of regularly giving, as well as the amazing one-off gifts. As an example, Hannah shared with me about a student who had left about 18 months ago. Towards the end of last year, they relatively randomly felt prompted to give £1,000 to G2. This was not something we'd budgeted for or anticipated. And there are loads of examples of this that constantly amaze us about how God provides for us. As I mentioned previously, our budget can be viewed and documented as a spreadsheet. It does exist. I look at it quite a lot. But it should reflect our values and our mission as a community. Rather than me going through the individual line item for how much this building costs, how much we spend on Jaffa cakes, Hannah and Kate have very helpfully split the budget into 6 categories. The first is reaching and discipling the next generation. So this relates to the mission and discipleship of students, young people, and children. 2, helping people follow Jesus. This relates to supporting our discipleship, whether that be through small groups, leadership training, or teaching development. 3, keeping things running, the cost of renting the buildings, compliance and admin-related costs. 4, caring for one another, the pastoral care that G2 offers. 5, giving beyond ourselves, the support for our mission partners, both locally and globally. And then 6, gathering as a church, the cost associated with meeting on a Sunday and midweek. On the next slide, we'll see a donut chart that shows how that budgeted expenditure is split across those 6 categories. I won't go into the individual numbers, but about a quarter is spent on reaching and discipling the next generation, about 20% on helping people follow Jesus, a further 20% on keeping things running, 15% on gathering as a church, 13% on caring for each other, and 7% on giving beyond ourselves. That sums to £110,773, which is about £5,000 higher than last year. Why is it higher than last year? There are various reasons why our budgeted expenditure will be higher, some of which we can control, some of which we can't. As all individuals and companies have seen with the cost of living, our costs have increased. This impacts us in 2 main ways. The things that we purchase have become more expensive. But secondly, we need to ensure that our staff are paid fairly for what they do. This, combined with changes in national insurance, mean that our staffing costs are just higher. In terms of our income, we think of this in 4 main ways. The first is the regular monthly giving that we receive, probably mostly through direct debits. The second is gift aid, so that's money that we can claim back from the government for those gifts. Grants, so that's funding that we apply for to support with specific mission initiatives. 4, one-off gifts or from members of the church or from previous members of the church, so alumni. As I mentioned, there's a brilliant example of that previously. So this donut chart shows how this is forecast to look in 2026. Currently, the sum of those 4 categories is £96,565, which is about £3,500 lower than in 2025. Our monthly giving sits at a comparable level to last year, but some of the grants that we've previously received are coming to an end. It leaves us with a gap of £14,208 between our forecast income and our forecast expenditure. If you recall from the previous slide, our reserves at the end of 2025 were £9,848, which is, so the gap is larger than our reserves. To be as clear as possible, as it currently stands, we cannot cover the anticipated budget difference to 2026 with our reserves. This is problematic. There are 2 ways of addressing this: cutting our spending, which we really want to avoid doing, or raising our income. It's relatively normal for there to be a gap in a church budget. and we totally trust in God's provision. We do, however, believe it's important to share this with you and to encourage you to pray and partner with us in this. So what are we going to do about it? I'd encourage all of you to pray regularly for this church, its leaders, its staff, and its finances. Currently, just over half of the households of G2 give regularly. As mentioned previously, other than the 2 small grants, this is the source of funding for G2. The 14k gap can sound like a very large number, but perhaps it's helpful if I break it down a little. If looked at from a monthly point of view, it's about £1,200 a month. If all 60 households contributed £20 more a month, we'd cover this gap. If you're someone that doesn't regularly give to G2, please do prayerfully consider setting up a regular direct debit to do so. If you are someone that already regularly gives to G2, please do prayerfully consider reviewing your monthly giving. This is a brilliant community that many people love and invest their time, money, and energy into. God has moved amazingly within and through our community over the last 12 months. We believe God is calling us to continue to do so, to continue to do all that we have been doing, and also do more. This does mean increasing our income to invest in this church community. Please pray with us for financial provision to support this, and prayerfully consider your own giving. This slide includes the key links that you'll need to set up or change your giving. As I come to a close, you'll have an opportunity to review this. The information is also available on the flyers on your chairs. For some of you, you'll need time to discuss this with others before you make a change. There's also a QR code on the screen linked to a form to be sent a reminder email in a couple of weeks' time. Finally, thank you so much for listening, for your generosity over the last 12 months. If you have any specific questions for me, please do speak to me at the end of the service. Thank you.